Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will talk about the topic biodiversity in chapter 3. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is, in fact, it is taken from two words. So one of the first word is bio, which is taken from the Greek word bios, it means life, and the second word is diversity. Diversity means variation, variety, or dissimilarities within and among the species. So biodiversity, it is a measure of variety of organisms. So how many, if we want to know that the what is the biodiversity in for example in our area, in our village or city where we are living. So when we count the number of plants, when we count the different plant species, not the same plant, different plant species, number of different animals, number of different birds and insects, so then this one will give us the idea that how much variety of plants and animals and insects are there in our area. So generally this area or city or one region or one country, it generally shows ecosystem. So the variety of organisms, they will be present in different ecosystems. What is an ecosystem? Ecosystem is the interaction of living organisms with non-living organisms. Living organisms are plants, animals, and microbes, while non-living organisms, these are water, soil, atmosphere, rainfall, temperature. All these are non-living organisms or non-living factors. So in ecosystem, we always have interaction with the living organisms. Plants, they are living with us, so we are depending on the plants. Some animals, they are also living in the same area, and there is the food chain, so the plants and animals, they have interaction with each other also. And at the same time, we all depend on different climatic factors, and on the plants, they depend on soil also. Because if the soil is fertile, then more plants, they will grow in that area. If the soil is drier and there is less rainfall, so then there will be few plants in that area. So biodiversity may increase or may decrease, and several factors, they will affect biodiversity. One of the factors is a climate, and then altitude, and then soil, and presence of all other species. The first three factors, climate, altitude, and soil, these are non-living factors. These are known as abiotic factors, and when other species are present in the region and they interact with each other, so this is the living factor, and it is known as biotic factor. So let's go back to the explanation that what is the meaning of within species variation and among species variation. Let's see, we have one of the examples of onions. If you can see here, there are different kinds of the onions, with different colors and different shapes. So this is the variation within species. And then in the same region, different types of the plants and the insects are also living there, and then some birds will also be living in that area. So there is variation in that area. There is diversity among the species. It is known as among species variation. So biodiversity is not distributed evenly on the earth. The first region where there is richest biodiversity, that is the tropical region, or it is known as tropic. Or there is another region, it is known as temperate region. There are several species, they are growing in that area or living in that area, but they are comparatively, they will have less rich biodiversity as compared to tropical regions. And then third region is the polar region, north and south poles we have, and on north and south poles we will have only fewer species. So here we see the example, it is not in the book but just for information, that what are the tropical forests. They are found on the equator. So where is an equator? If this is a globe, so the central line, central equator line is there. So all these forests, they will grow on this line, and there will be calm winds, warm temperature and high rainfalls in these areas, these regions. So this will be the tropical region. The temperate region has cool climate, mild summers, and they have high rainfall but less than the tropical forests. While we see here, it is the polar region, ice glaciers are there, and one of the examples of the polar regions is the polar bear is also in that area. So there will be fewer living organisms in the polar region. So this is just an explanation. So about the globe distribution. Where will be tropic line? It will be on the tropical forest. They will grow on the equator line. Much rains will be in this area, and then the above and below there is the desert area. This region is known as subtropic, and then rainfall will occur near the south pole, near the south and north pole. This region is known as temperate region. So then there is the polar region in both the poles. One is the north pole and other is south pole. So the other topic is biodiversity on earth. The plants, the term is used for plants is flora, and for animals the term fauna is used. It is believed, it is estimated that this biodiversity which is nowadays on the earth, it might be the result of 400 billion years of evolution. However, the origin of life on earth is not well known, but the biologists, they predict that possibly 600 million years ago the life on earth, it consisted of bacteria and some similar organisms, but they are not sure about it. So what is an importance of biodiversity? One of the importance that when we will have the region and there are varieties of plants, varieties of the animals, then we will have we will have more food in that area. So the biodiversity provides food for human, and directly or indirectly the living organisms, they are used, and from these living organisms, especially from plants, the medicines are extracted. The other term for medicines, the drug is used, or the building material, industrial materials, they can also be derived directly from the plants, like building materials. For construction purposes, the plant materials, plant products are used, or fibers are also taken from the plants. Some dyes are also extracted from the plants. Resins, whenever we give cut to the plant, some liquid sap will come out from the plant, and later on this liquid sap will be solidified, and it is the resin which we generally use in different medicines or industries also. Gums are extracted from the plants. Some adhesives are also extracted. There are some plants from which rubber is extracted, and some plants, they are used for production of oil. For example, like the olive fruit is used for production of olive oil, and from the mustard plant, the mustard oil is also extracted. There are several different plants from which sunflower is also one of the examples, that sunflower oil is extracted from the seeds of the sunflower. So what is the other importance of biodiversity? That generally the biodiversity, it makes and maintains ecosystem. Then the biodiversity also contribute in regulating chemistry of the atmosphere and water supply. and also it is directly involved in recycling nutrients and provides fertile soil. Now, these 3 points I will explain here again. Little bit explanation is needed, though it's not in your book, so but just for information I will add some slides here, that how the biodiversity, it maintains ecosystem. So this is an example of the food chain, that in the water there are plants, different types of the plants, and some other living organisms. They are depending on plants, so they eat these plants. And the second category, which is depending on the plants, they are eaten by the third category of living organisms like sea urchins, mussels, crabs or whales. And then on the top in this food chain there is either a duck-like bird which eats crabs, starfish, also mussels and limpets also. So all kinds of these living organisms which are in the second and third food chain, they are eaten by the eater. So if one of these organisms dies, say for example mussels, they will die. So imbalance will be created in the system, and then one of the organisms will grow. They will be reproduced more and more, and their population will be increased. So then the imbalance will be the result at the end. So that's why the biodiversity, it maintains ecosystem stability. Now there is another example, that generally wherever there are more snakes, in those areas there will be mice also. So the snakes, they eat these mice, and if the snakes are removed from those areas, what will happen? The population of mice, they will increase abnormally, and it will create problem for the plants, it will create problem for the animals and for the people also, and they will cause diseases. Especially one of the examples, that in some decades before, the mice, they caused disease in UK, United Kingdom there. So then how the biodiversity regulates chemistry of our atmosphere and soil supply. Sorry, not water supply, it is soil supply. What happens, that the atmospheric carbon dioxide, it also exchanges with the oceanic water, and at the same time this carbon dioxide is absorbed through the leaves by the plant, and water vapors, they are absorbed by the tree from the soil. So water and carbon dioxide inside the leaves, they prepare the food, and then oxygen is released in the environment, and water vapors, they are also transpired into the environment. Later on, this food will be used by the plants and by the other living organisms. When these plants, they die, they fall on the surface of the soil, and then they are decomposed. When they are decomposed, their organic nutrients are mixed with the soil, so the soil becomes more fertile. Then biodiversity also recycles nutrients. So the plants, they are eaten by mice, and when the plants, they die, and when the animals, they die, what happens, that the decomposers, what are the decomposers? Fungi and bacteria, they act on these dead plants and dead animals. What do? They break these plants into simple substances, or animals, they decompose them, and then when they decompose them, ammonia is released inside the soil. Then this ammonia converts into nitrites, and then to the nitrates, and some of the nitrates, they are absorbed by the plants, other living plants again, and some of the nitrates in the form of nitrogen, it is taken by it releases into the atmosphere in the form of the nitrogen. So this is the how biodiversity recycle nutrients. And then these nutrients, like in the form of the nitrates, they are taken back by other plants, and some nitrogen is released into the atmosphere. Thank you very much.